Hi, and welcome to Creative Live TV. We're happy to have you guys all back. And I am Kate, your co-host today, and I'm very excited to have Robyn Ward on the episode today. This is our stream that goes into the homes, kitchens, and studios of creators, entrepreneurs just like you. And Robyn is one of those really talented entrepreneurs. She is a performance coach, the founder of FounderForward, and she is here today to give us a workshop on how to manage the F words, fear, focus, and fatigue in uncertain times. So welcome to the show, Robyn. We're excited to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me. I am fired up and ready to have some fun dropping some F words.
All right, so let's introduce everyone a little bit more to you, Robyn. Robyn, like I said, she is the founder of FounderForward. Can you tell us a little bit about FounderForward?
Sure. I created FounderForward about 5 years ago. I had been an operator and a venture capitalist, and what I was really passionate about was helping individuals, leaders, founders, entrepreneurs scale themselves alongside their business. There's a great James Clear quote that says, entrepreneurship is a personal growth engine hidden as a business pursuit. And I really believe that. So that's the work that we're doing. I do one-on-one coaching. I run a women's coaching circle. I do different webinars and workshops.
Great. Well, we have a ton of people joining the live stream right now. We have Abidil from Turkey saying hello, Sue from Normal, Illinois, Andrew from Toronto. Everyone is excited for the workshop today. So I'm about to pin, Robyn has a workbook that goes along with the workshop today, and I'm pinning it to the top of wherever you're streaming. So if you're streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or you're tuning in to Creative Live TV, I'll be dropping a link to the workbook. So download that while we're introing Robyn and getting to know her before we hop into the workshop. So Robyn, tell me a little bit more. I know that you are also a professor at USC. You teach an entrepreneurial class. And from what I remember, you just finished up a semester doing a class with Pete Carroll and Michael Gervais, who is the psychologist for the Seattle Seahawks. So tell us a little bit more about that class.
Absolutely. I have been co-teaching entrepreneurship classes at USC, which is my alma mater, go Trojans, for 8 years. And I did launching new ventures. And then when I was a VC, I did investing in new ventures. And this past year, teamed up with a performance researcher, Ben Hotling, and Michael Gervais. And we did a class from the MBA school, Marshall, mixed with the Performance Science Institute. And we had Pete Carroll on. We had Angela Duckworth of Grit on. It was an amazing class. I loved it. I hope we do it again this spring.
Both of those people have actually recently been on our founders, Chase Jarvis's podcast, both Michael Gervais and Angela Duckworth. So there's a lot of synergy going on. It's nice. I know our audience is really excited to hear from you now. So while I'm pinning this on, let's talk a little bit about the F words. Give us a little bit of, this year has been a hard year for everybody. 2020 has turned into quite a shitstorm of a year. So I think usually you teach this class for entrepreneurs at the beginning of the year, but I think when we were talking, it seemed like it was a really great time to have you on and kind of reframe 2020 for us. And so tell us a little bit about the workshop that we're going to get into and how it applies to this year.
Absolutely. You said shitstorm. I'll say F show without saying the F word. It's been a wild year full of uncertainty. And for those listening, I know it's a creative community and an entrepreneurial community. You're used to uncertainty, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But now we've got uncertainty on top of uncertainty. And so I coach a lot of folks on how to deal with their their mindset, their emotions through uncertain times. And so we thought that doing this to a broader group here would be very beneficial. We actually, believe it or not, are at the end of the year, and we're coming up on the new year. And it's a little bit about, recalibrating, resetting, reframing. And just a little bit of background is that in my 25 years working with entrepreneurs, I've worked with hundreds, and I really just became obsessed with what are the habits and the practices and the mindsets that allow some entrepreneurs to successfully ride the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship by definition. And in turn, on the flip side, what are those habits, practices, and mindsets that hold some folks back? And so through that, I developed a framework called Best Self Leadership. And the premise is you can't be a good leader of others, whether that's your business, your family, your community, unless you're a good leader of self. So that framework is self-care, self-awareness, self-management, and self-growth. That's a far more robust 6-week program. You can go find out about it on my site, but the F words takes some of the highlights and puts it into usually 2 hours. We're going to do this in an hour today, so we've got a lot to cover.
All right. Well, I feel like that means we should jump in and get started because we have a lot to cover. And I think this is all really great material that everyone really needs right now. So let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Let's kick it off. Let's talk about why we are here. Okay. So first of all, I want this to be fun and interactive, right? So I just raise your hands or hit us up in the chat in the interwebs webinar land. Who is so over 2020, right? Like, talk about an F word. Have you, or do you want to say F you or F off 2020? My hand is up. Kate's hand is up. Is everybody's hand up? Because I think it's pretty universal, right? Yet at the same time, again, we're approaching November. We really want to get ourselves back in gear, right? Who's ready to reset? Who wants to have a better 2021? Right? Fired up, fired up. I see people fired up. That's what you came here for. All right. However, right? Who thinks that sounds great, but you're mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausted, right? Like, we want to get there, but most days we're feeling overscheduled and overwhelmed and exhausted and reactive instead of proactive, and we're anxious and we're worried and we're stressed, right? Well, all of this was things that entrepreneurs were pre-COVID, right? So one, nobody's alone, which is why we're on the call, but we are at peak roller coaster, folks, right? As I was mentioning in the conversation with Kate, the pre-reality, pre-2020 was the definition of entrepreneurship is a roller coaster. There's ups and downs and highs and lows, and sometimes that's within the same hour, right? Is everybody nodding? Are you getting this? Yep. I know it's an audience of solopreneurs and entrepreneurs and creatives. And on top of that, we've added this volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity, complexity. Technically complexity, then ambiguity. That's VUCA. It's called a VUCA world, right? And we are at peak VUCA. We are at VUCA because we're already an entrepreneur. And then we're in VUCA because there's never been more uncertain times, right? So stress, anxiety, burnout, those were already at record levels pre-COVID. So now some studies are saying some of us are working 40% more. We're context shifting, right? Nod your head, raise your hand, tap in the chat. If you're also teaching your kids math while you're trying to be a creative and run a business, we have a lot going on, right? So I just want to say wherever you are at or wherever you have been this year in terms of your well-being, your productivity, your mindset, it's all okay and it's all perfectly normal. Right? The first and most important thing before we even dive in today is that we're giving ourselves grace and compassion, right? And we're not just giving ourselves grace and compassion, we're giving our family, our kids, our loved ones, our community grace and compassion. These are hard times. But from this place of grace and compassion, we're going to dial into today assessment and awareness of how you're feeling, how you're showing up each day. And then we're going to actually give you tangible takeaways and tools so that you can take action that's even small steps with all the tools we're going to give you that's going to allow you to regain clarity and routine and control around your business in these uncertain times. So how are we going to do that? Enter the F words. We are going to master fatigue, focus, and fear, right? So these are the three areas that I see, whether it's the students at USC, the entrepreneurs that I'm working with, the CEOs I'm coaching, and anybody in between, right? We're all running around on empty or on autopilot, and we just need to get some clarity and some control back. So we've got fatigue, focus, and fear. You cannot show up and be your best self and be your most creative and entrepreneurial self if you are exhausted, scattered, and stressed, right? Everybody gets that. So what we're going to do, we're going to talk about creating a peak performance recipe. We're going to get you back on offense, right? Proactive rather than reactive. We're going to give you some better tools for managing your time, attention, and energy. And finally, very, very importantly, do not hop off of this, because we're going to talk about developing a toolkit for managing your mindset and emotions, which is so very important right now, right? So there's going to be a lot of information. We're going to go quick. There's a lot of tools. There is a workbook. Kate has it pinned. Make sure that you go get the workbook so that you can do the work either along with me talking after this. Maybe you go and send the workbook to a friend and you have an accountability partner. The goal here is that you're going to leave here with tools for consciously and intentionally managing these F words. Even an incremental small change can have an exponential impact on successfully running your business and really how you're showing up in life right now, given all of the uncertainty, right? So let's hop in. We are going to start with the first F word. These are all in an order on purpose. There will be some flow in between, but we're going to talk about managing fatigue, right? So let's talk about the fact that burnout is not the price you pay for success. In fact, it can cost you success. And we are in this world now where everything is always hustling and always on culture, and we're running around and we're on autopilot. And what's happening is that it's coming at the cost of our mental, physical, and emotional well-being, okay? This is not serving you. It's not serving you as a creative or a leader or a parent or a fill in the blank. The bottom line, big takeaway, if we don't prioritize our being, our doing will suffer. I'm going to say that a second time for those in the back that need to hear it, because it's actually more important in 2020. If we don't prioritize our well-being, our doing will suffer, okay? If our tank isn't full, neither is our potential. And I know we have all high potential people on this call, because those are the types of people that are going to take an hour out of their day to actually do the work. So here's the jam. The number one job that you have is to bring your best self to work, because it's your business or you're the creative, right? So self-care is the main essential to manifesting anything in life, but you have to be as creative, as optimistic, as productive, as energized as you can be every day. As the creative and the entrepreneur, you are the number one asset, okay? So if you're not getting enough sleep, or you're not working out or getting exercise, or you're not making time to refresh and rejuvenate, you're jeopardizing your own success, right? So prioritizing your well-being is physical, mental, spiritual, so you can create a sustainable life and a sustainable business. So here's a quote from Alexis Ohanian. If you don't know Alexis Ohanian, he's an amazing entrepreneur. He started Racket. He's a venture capitalist. He happens to be the very supportive husband of Serena Williams and dad to Olympia Ohanian. And I know all of this because I follow them all on social, and that might make me weird, but they bring me a lot of joy. But he says, health is one of the keys to being successful in business. Without a healthy body and mind, you're going to struggle. What I see is that entrepreneurs are so worried about cash flow. They're tracking their cash and they're not tracking their health, right? Your success is directly tied to the strength of your physical and mental well-being, right? Healthy, happy people build healthy, happy businesses. So, I always know there's somebody on the call who feels superhuman, because sometimes entrepreneurs do. So I want to say to you that's superhuman. Nobody's superhuman. There are things that your body, your mind, and your spirit need to survive and thrive. And you need to pay attention to those, right? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to roll into self-care. And I just want to say before I start talking about self-care kind of became a thing with Instagram, where people would hashtag self-care and somebody would be in a tub with a bottle of rosé or eating chocolate, or like at the sports game eating a hot dog, and it's like once a month thing you do. That's not what self-care is. Self-care is a daily habit. It's the daily intentional thinking and way of life that ensures your mental, your physical, your emotional well-being. So when I'm talking and when you're reading this list of 6 things, you're probably going, oh no, this woman's not going to tell me anything new. And I may not. Some of you, this will be new, and some of you just need to rehear this because we've gotten out of whack because it's a weird year and we haven't dealt before. But most people are not operating at their optimal performance because of some of this stuff. So I'm just going to roll through some highlights, and we're going to just start with the fact that, like, it all sounds simple, but it's not easy, right? So this takes commitment and discipline and intention to live this way. And again, we may have developed some bad habits this year. We may have been thrown off our game. Now's the time to reset. So as I run through, I just want you to think about this because we're going to actually have an exercise about building your peak performance recipe. So the first thing is sleep. Most of us need 7 to 8 hours, and most of us are not getting it. Sleep has the biggest impact on how you perform during a day, how creative you are, how you're able to manage your brain. And so it's a vicious cycle because when you're sleep deprived, you're not performing at your best. You can't manage your mindset and your emotions at the best. Then you're tired, you barely sleep, and you wake up and you do the whole thing again. Here's the other stat that I just read from Deloitte. 33% of people wake up in the middle of the night and check their email. Woo! Put your phones away, folks. You can't wake up in the middle of the night and check your email, right? Number 1 tip, put your phone in the bathroom or another room. Just use an old school alarm. Some people say, oh, but my phone's my alarm. Well, if your phone is also getting you up in the middle of the night, just buy an old school alarm. It's fine. There are a lot of technology tools and apps that can help you with sleep if this is a problem for you. Some of the other tools we're going to talk about today are also going to help with sleep because I know a lot of people are having a hard time sleeping in 2020 because there's a lot going on. So we will come back to this, ways to help you sleep. What you put in your body, eat well, drink well, right? Our microbiome really runs our body and we need to pay attention. Here's what a lot of entrepreneurs do. Entrepreneurship is a cortisol-inducing job. And most entrepreneurs I know drink a lot of coffee. Then they have a crash, and then they drink some sugar, and then they have a crash, and they're doing all of these things that are actually adding cortisol and testosterone and adrenaline to their body. So just know what that's doing to you, particularly if you work in teams, because it causes chaos often. But the other thing is, most Americans are drinking a little more than they normally would. I get it. People want to self-medicate a little bit because times are crazy. But we are in a position where this may be how we are for a while, or maybe we are changing. But at this point in time, we've been in it for a while. It might be time to take a look at some habits that you have developed that you would like to pull back on so that you can operate at your best, right? Remember, no judgment around that. It's fine. Give yourself space and grace. But at some point, maybe we need to stop drinking the second bottle of rosé each night. I'm not sure, right? It's up to you. Let's talk about movement. Here's one for creatives. So many people right now between the teaching their kids math and the job don't really have time, and you can't really go to a gym. What do? So you need 3 to 4x of mild movement a week. And if you do walking meetings or if you go on a walk, which everybody can go on a walk somewhere, there's actual Stanford research that says that it can increase your creativity 60%. So every creative that's on this call should be scheduling 60 minutes or 30 minutes of walking each day where you could potentially be on a call or doing some planning and also make you more creative. Think well. We're going to talk about that. That's our last one. But this is about training your brain just like you train bodies. Emotional and mental fitness is just as important as physical fitness, right? We're going to talk about training for optimism and positivity and gratitude and growth mindset. Disconnecting. This is a big one, folks. Our brains need downtime, and there's no downtime. We're on the phone, we're on the social, we're looking at the email, we're checking our Slack on our phone, right? So the first thing is we need a digital detox, right? Figure out how you're going to digital detox or put a few digital detox Saturdays, like Social Free Saturday, on your calendar. There is information now that folks that are reading more news and going through the news feeds and the social loops are actually showing higher levels of depression and exhaustion. So we need to really think about all of the information that we're overloading our brains with. We also talk about disconnection. We're talking about from work. And I know many of you are going to say, but I'm a solo entrepreneur. I am my work, right? Your work will suffer if your being suffers. You need to rejuvenate. This is just like an athlete. Athletes run and then they rest, right? So if your brain is your creativity and your big muscle, or you're a business athlete, then you need to do the same thing, and you need to schedule breaks in your day. You need to schedule vacations. I realize we can't necessarily fly like we used to, but there are plenty of beautiful places to go. So the last one is connect well, right? So even for introverts, we need to connect, right? The single biggest predictor of human resilience is support from other people. Okay. So sometimes entrepreneurs isolate, and they're working so hard that they're not seeing their family, or they haven't seen their friends, and they say they don't have time for play. Those of you that are creative should know that recreation is actually key to creation. So we want to make sure that we are also connecting. So this all is something I call your peak performance recipe. In 2020, I'm just calling this a wellness recipe, because I'm not sure that anybody's operating at peak performance. And if we are, it's probably not as many days as we usually do. So I don't want people to get caught up in that and think, oh, how could we operate in peak performance? What I want you to do is actually write down in the workbook. Again, the workbook is pinned and you can find it in the chat. I want you to actually write this stuff down. Writing down our needs and our goals increases the likelihood of accountability and achievement, right? So this is your recipe. Write it down. What do you need for these things? I want you to pay particular attention to the morning and the evening routine. I'm a big believer in win the morning, win the day. What are you doing to win the morning, win the day, right? There's all kinds of amazing things you can do. Tim Ferriss's Tools of the Titans, 80% of Titans meditate in the morning. Lots of people are journaling in the morning, right? If you make your bed in the morning, there's science that tells your brain you're already winning, you already achieved something. I actually wake up and shout, win the morning, win the day, and then I make my bed. And my dog looks at me like I'm crazy, but I do it every morning, right? And it helps the serotonin in my brain start the day right. I want you to think about what gets you into flow, right? So as humans, we want to be in flow. We want to be in that zone, right? And how many hours a day are you actually in flow? Many people are not even getting into their flow at all right now. So we actually need to think about what gets us in flow, what disrupts us from flow, how do we plan that into our day? We're actually going to talk about calendaring a little later, so I'm going to come back to that. Here's what I want people to know. You are not going to hit this wellness / peak performance recipe every single day. Nobody's perfect, and life is very messy, right? This is why I hate when people say work-life balance. It's a blend. There is no balance, right? They don't balance 50-50. Life is a very, very messy thing. This is going to change and bob and weave. But if you don't have a basis for when you're feeling good, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, and how to run yourself during the day, then you can easily get lost and you can easily get off track. So this is meant to just be helpful, but it's also not meant, at the end of the day, if you didn't hit your recipe, that you're supposed to beat yourself up, because as I said before, #grace and compassion, right? So this is a tool, but don't use this tool against yourself. Use it for yourself, right? So Kate, that was a lot in a little. Do we have any questions or any comments that come up in chat that you want to share? I can't hear you, Kate.
There we go. Now you'll be able to hear me. At home streaming. I was just saying we were getting tons of comments. People are really, the content's resonating with people. Grady says this is awesome. I want to remind everybody right now, if you haven't, I'm going to drop the link to the workbook again. Robyn does have a workbook that follows along with this that we're going along with, and it does have some exercises in there that you guys can fill out on your own when you're when you're done with this stream. But we have tons of people. We have people from Canada, Egypt, Toronto, all over the world saying all of this is resonating. No one's taking good care of themselves, and you're giving them good tools to start taking better care of themselves.
Awesome. I like to hear it. I want to say something that I think Kate has heard me say often. I am a big believer that entrepreneurship has no zip code. So when you tell me people are joining from Turkey and Egypt, I just get so excited. So thank you for tuning in, and let's keep going because we got a lot more to get through. The next F word is focus, right? Executing efficiently and effectively. Focus is essential to productivity and execution. I'm not going to lie here, folks. I'm going to start out and I'll raise my own hand first. I have had a bear of a time focusing in 2020. Are we with me? It has been a challenge. All right. But I like to, drink my own tea, lemonade, rosé, whatever we want to call it. Right. So I recently went back to some of this focus stuff, and I really feel like it's helping me like start to get my shit together here at the end of 2020 to go into 2021. So I'm excited about this. For me, focus has three parts. Okay. It's actually the blending of time, attention, and energy. So you can get a lot of time management and productivity tips from a lot of different experts, and I'm sure many of them have been on Creative Live. You'll hear me probably repeat some of those. But I think what a lot of people are missing is they're really just focused on the time component. And if you show up to a meeting, but you are exhausted, hence the conversations we just had, and or you're focused on some other thing that's stressing you out or something that's happening in the future, or if you're focused on ruminating on something that happened in the past, then you're actually not focused in the minute. So it's not just about optimizing or time hacking, right? It's not just about productivity. That actually means time, attention, and energy. So hopefully you will get thinking about that. In my experience, having worked with hundreds of folks, it's a skill set that separates the high performers in today's fast-moving, ambiguous world are people that have a immense ability to figure out what's important, to be present in the moment, and stay super focused, right? So we're going to talk about how to do some of this. Where's my next slide? My next slide has like a tornado on it. Anybody feel like we've just been like whoosh, 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 whoosh all over the place this year, right? So, raise your hand if 2020 has really effed up your goals, right? Goals are so important, right? It's completely fair and understandable. You're not alone. It was like, a bomb being dropped on everybody's goals. But, there's still a boatload of macro uncertainty, right? What you can do is start to build certainty into your micro life. You are in control of bringing the clarity. And part of that is getting crystal clear on your priorities and your goals. So you will note in the workbook, again, get the workbook, it's pinned. I've got some great examples because I could do an entire 2-hour workshop here on Creative Live next week just on goal setting. I'm very passionate about it. I've written blog posts on it. If you go to FounderForward.com and you go to the blog, you can find some really great stuff. But the idea is this. Many entrepreneurs think about, or creatives are thinking about, what are my big goals for 2021? And you're thinking your business. Okay, well, for your business to grow and hit those goals, you have to grow as a human. So there's sort of two tracks of growth, the business growth, and then you as a leader, or you as a business person, or you as a creative, whatever those are. So technically you need to have both. You need to have personal and professional goals, and you should have short-term and long-term. And a lot of people don't sit down and do these, or they only, again, do them for their business. Right? So I provide, and it's a little businessy for some, but the way that the tech startup world works is off of OKRs, objectives and key results. I provide examples in the workbook so you can see what that's like. You want to drive those. And then there's a second page that actually is developmental. The second page is for you. Here's the growth goal I have, the developmental goal. Here's why, because you need to tap into your why or you're never going to achieve the goal. Here are the limiting beliefs that might be getting in my way. Here are the things that I might need to change internally and in my mindset to achieve this goal. Here are the external outer skills that I need to develop to achieve the goal. So walk through that. Pick 3 different growth and development areas and actually fill that out. It will be extremely helpful. The other tip here I have is, if you haven't heard of it, live your life by 3 big rocks. So you're going to set these goals that are for 12 months and 3 years and maybe then a big one for 10 years. But when we get to the messy day-to-day, how do we manage all the stuff, right? Because any entrepreneur by definition is wearing multiple hats. It's called the big 3 rocks, or the MIT's most important tasks. Every Sunday night, I sit down and think about the week, and it's like, what are the 3 most important things? What drive the needle on the business this week? Every morning, I say, what are my big 3 rocks for the day? Ask, if you have a team, ask them too, right? Your job is to help everybody make sure they're on the right priorities and moving the ball forward. Okay, we're going to talk about when to get those big 3 rocks done in the day, because what we tend to do is save them for later in the day and then they never get done. Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. You need to measure, review, and reflect. A lot of people set goals and then they just move forward and then they never look back. So if you calendar it and you say, where am I doing well? Where have I fallen back, right? The whole learning experience is in the reflection. We actually don't learn from experience. We learn from reflection. I also have a blog post on that on Medium, and it has a ton of reflection questions to go through. Something very, very, very important here is the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no more. That's a Warren Buffett quote. I love Warren Buffett. I could not agree with that more. In order to be good at saying no and drawing boundaries, you have to know your priorities and your goals, because you're going to lean into your own priorities and goals, and you're going to weed out doing things that don't move forward with those priorities and goals, right? So ruthless prioritization and goal setting. Let's move to the next slide. I love this slide. Okay, ready? Who's watching? We've got Beyonce. Some mornings you wake up and you're ready to take on the day and you're going to step into the day with power. And some people are Beyonce. Are we going? We're going to the next slide, Adam.
I think we're having a couple technical issues, so we're going to just have to describe this slide, which is
great. Best slide ever. Okay, so I've got Beyonce on that. So, some days you like wake up and you're ready to tackle it all, right? And you're like Beyonce, or you're like Annie Leibovitz, or you're like Jeff Bezos, the new Jeff Bezos that's like buff and chic looking, right? And the thing you do is you turn on your phone, you sit at your computer, you find your office desk, which sometimes is your dining room. You may be lucky enough to have an office. And all of a sudden, you just get punched in the face and your day's been taken away from you. You started like you were going to get on offense and you were ready, and then it just went to hell in a handbasket within like 20 minutes. Who has this happen? I mean, it happen all the time, right? So let me just throw some stats out, right? All the time. Kate's with me. So first of all, before 2020, there were stats that the average worker is only productive 3 hours a day. Why is that? I'm going to give you some stats to explain it, right? But if you think about that being pre-2020, I don't even know what that number is. Maybe we're all productive 2 hours a day. I mean, that's really, really bonkers, right? Yeah. So like if you can actually get control and stay on offense more, and you, for instance, could get 4 productive hours a day and your competitors are at 2, you would be winning, right? So 62% of people look at their phone 15 minutes after waking up. Do you realize what you do if you open your phone 15 minutes upon waking up? You have just blown your ability to be on offense that day. You have just like inbound, and let your email and let those requests completely take over your day, right? So senior leaders get 200 or more emails a day. People check their email 74 times a day. The average person turns on their phone 150 times a day. I ran some math on this. If each time they did it, it was 1 minute, which was seriously optimistic on the low side because we get caught in our phone, that would account for 2.5 hours every day, okay? And our calendars are a mess. You know why? Because we're prioritizing what's on the schedule instead of scheduling our priorities, which is why the last slide was important, right? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to agree, everybody on this call all over the world, we're going to work smarter and not harder. I got people all the time, entrepreneurs look at me, oh, Robyn, I can't live that peak performance recipe. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to play. I literally tell them to give me their calendar, and within like a perusing of their calendar, I can usually find them 2 more hours in their day because I can tell them where they're being inefficient, right? So like, let's take control of our calendars back. The world's a crazy place and we cannot control much. We can control how we spend our time. By the way, the only truly limited resource is time, okay? This is why people that excel at time management are wildly successful. Okay, so if we had another slide, we would be moving to another slide. However, if you're following along in the workbook, the good news is you're seeing all of this because I have it all laid out in the workbook, right? Particularly the time, attention, and energy section is really amazing. And the first thing to managing time and becoming excellent at it is actually tracking your time. So Peter Drucker, who's a big management and leadership guru, he has these 4 questions. Actually, there were 3, and I added the 4th. So somehow I collaborated with him, even though he's no longer alive. The bottom of page 5 in the workbook, for over 2 weeks, run through these 4 questions. Start understanding where you're spending time. Entrepreneurs wear too many hats. You've got to unload some. There's a lot of technology tools out there that will help you do this. And there's a lot of time to be saved in virtual assistants. Okay. If you don't want to do the Drucker exercise, I have a Stephen Covey exercise, right? And that's the what's urgent versus important. And there's 4 quadrants, right? So if everybody's looking at that, another option is just at the end of each day to just guesstimate what percentage you're spending in each one of these quadrants, right? So quadrant 3 and 4 are basically like frustrations, interruptions, email, social media, right? So like, unfortunately, as the stats on the page prior, we're spending way too much time in those, okay? So quadrant 1 is like crises and pressing problems and immediate demands. And quadrant 2 is where you're on your purpose and you're planning and you're in strategy. We want to be in quadrant 2, 75% or more of the time, okay? I know it's hard and it's a wacky year, so maybe we need to adjust that, right? Maybe it's 60% of the time. My guess is most people are literally in 1, 3, and 4, 80 to 85% of the time. And in quadrant 2, which is the magic quadrant, 10 or 15% of the time. The only way you're going to know that is if you start tracking it. Again, everything starts with awareness. That is a great tool for you. Based on some stats I just gave you, we are spending way too much time in our email. Okay, raise your hand if your email inbox is open all day long. So it's just attacking you. Dopamine, yep, dopamine hit. And every time it attacks you, even if you're in flow, because it's open, you go see what was written. Of course you're on defense if that's happening, right? That's crazy. We need to develop a discipline around our email inbox. And I have entrepreneurs tell me all the time, but it's so important and I'm the only one that can answer. If you open it 3 times a day, that means there's 2.5 to 3 hours in between when you haven't opened it. I think everybody knows that we do phone calls or texts for things that are super urgent. I would really encourage you. In fact, many of my entrepreneurs that have done this said that this was like the most time-saving and game-changing tool is for them to have on their calendar email slots, right? 3 times a day. If you really need it, do 4 times a day. Start with 4 times a day and then get comfortable and go less, right? Know this. This one's hard to implement. It takes a lot of discipline. So if you start and do it well for 4 days and then you screw up, what do I say? Grace and compassion. Get back on the horse, right? Like these are things that you're not always going to remember to do, okay? But that's okay. You can always try again. 4 Ds of inbox management. Do 60-second rule. If you can read it and type back in 60 seconds, right? The idea is don't ever touch an email twice. How many of us have this lined up email inbox because we have no management system? This is going to be great for you. The 4 Ds of inbox management. Do something with it, delegate it, give it to somebody else, defer it, which means it's important. It takes more than 60 seconds. Just put it in a little defer inbox, right? Like this is the important stuff I need to get back to, or delete it. What we do is we just let things sit there, or we open them and then we open them again. Sometimes we open them 3 and 4 times before we actually take action. Get some discipline around the 4 Ds of inbox management. Is anybody following me? Is anybody really like owned by their inbox? Like, let's take our ownership back from our inbox, right?
So we actually have a question coming in about that, which is about email notifications and not letting your phone be the thing that takes you off of, this time blocking and keeping yourself to these, blocks that you agree with yourself that's going to be the time. Do you or don't you turn on or off your email notifications?
So I turn them off. There's going to be a rare few percentage of people that have a real reason why they can't turn theirs off. So again, not all of these tools work for everybody, but for most people, all of those notifications literally are just dopamine hits and they're just distractions and they are eating your day and they are taking you off of offense. So unless you are one of the few people that has to have the notification because there's some dire consequence of somebody not being able to get a hold of you within 2.5 hours, which again is a very rare breed of a human, then turn them off, right?
Yeah.
Time blocking. We're going to talk about time blocking. In the chat, who time blocks? Do we have time block people?
Let's see. Put your hands up if you're a time blocker in the chat. All right, we're getting a couple people.
Awesome. So here's the deal, folks. You've got long to-do lists. You're entrepreneurs and you're creatives and you're solopreneurs and you're running businesses. That's a joke. Science tells us that it makes us more stressed. We're stressing ourselves out because we're focusing on all the things that we're not doing that are on the list. What didn't I get done? So what we need to do is time block our day. We're going to go through this. I've got a calendar, so you can go do this at home in the workbook. But we're also context shifting, right? So we're going to figure that out. We're going to talk about it. But before we talk about it, I do want to zoom into attention and energy. And this goes to the tablet, the question that we just had about notifications. So again, those were all time related and those were priority related. Now we're talking about attention and energy. Number one thing, practice presence, right? We're going to talk about this again later, but mindfulness, being present in the moment, right? This has so many benefits, right? Basically, mindfulness is being intentionally using our attention. Okay, so there's a lot of spiritual benefits, and maybe some people think that mindfulness is woo-woo, but mindfulness actually has a lot of science benefits. And one of them is allowing you to focus. And in an attention economy, we actually need to practice to be able to focus better, right? So whether that's breathing, whether that's doing like a check-in with your body. Every time my phone rings, I do a deep breath. I'm going to tell you something, and I hope you all don't hack me, but my password on my computer is breathe 12 something because you need all of the things. But so every time that I log in, it's reminding me to take a deep breath and reset, right? Find ways to
that's such a good trick.
Yes. I just did a leadership workshop and I told them the thing, and it was a bunch of tech guys, and they're like, we're all going to go hack you. And I was like, you know what? I should stop sharing my full password. Okay, shut your tabs, turn off your notifications. You guys stop multitasking. We don't multitask. Our brain doesn't switch like that. It actually can make you up to 40% less productive. So we need to stop doing that. We need to ritualize and cultivate our flow, which I've talked about. You need to plan your schedule around your energy rhythms. Most people, not everyone, should be a maker in the morning and a manager in the afternoon. This is a lot of creatives on this call. Okay, most people, not everyone, are most creative after they wake up in the morning. So guess what? Your big three rocks, your things that are in flow, your things that you need your creative juices or your analytical juices running for should be in the morning block of time, right? This goes back to actually scheduling our priorities, and then instead of letting our schedule tell us what's important, we have to tell it. We have to input. We have to do our big three rocks first. Otherwise, here's what's happened. You don't do your big three rocks in the morning. You're like, oh, I'll do them in the afternoon. I want to tick off the really easy things. Then it's lunch, then you're tired. Then you have a fire drill or something went wrong. And then you get to the next day and you didn't do the three most important things, right? So do those in the morning, schedule your flow stuff in the morning, schedule in breaks, pockets of stillness. Again, you're refreshing your brain. People that just work. I used to do this nonstop, work. I'm an entrepreneur. There's never end. If you don't take a break, you're actually less productive. And there's all kinds of studies around that I'm not going to get into. And then, of course, the last one is practice self-care so that you're coming to the table physiologically and psychologically healthy. And that's everything we just went through. So I'm not going to go through much more of this because I really do want to get to the mindset stuff. But in your workbooks, you have an example of a time-blocked schedule. Don't stress out if this does not look like your schedule. This is for an entrepreneur of a venture-backed company. The point is, you can see that they're a maker in the morning and a manager in the afternoon. If we add my deck up, you would actually see that I block out a big block that says, teach my 5 and 8-year-old math, right? I'm not oblivious to the fact that all of our schedules have been disrupted, but you still have to schedule some of that time where you can. And if you're working with other people, you should share your calendars in this world. Everybody needs to understand what else other people have on their plate, right? Back to grace and compassion. But you want to make sure that you're blocking your big rocks, that you're a maker in the morning and a manager in the afternoon, that you have email check-ins calendared. You want to make sure that you have a break in your day. You want to make sure that you actually put in time for reflection. So whatever the most important activities you're doing, think about how you could put them in blocks, and the blocks need to be color. It actually calms our mind, because when we have the long to-do list, we know exactly when and where in the week we're going to get the stuff done. So that is sort of the end of the section on time, attention, and energy. Page 8 in your workbook has a blank calendar, and it has the 3 buckets of email along with some of the other things that you want to schedule in for. So I would encourage everybody to take a stab at this calendar. This is another activity that is not something that's just easy to start implementing overnight. It may take weeks, it will take tweaks, but it really, really is helpful in working smarter and not harder. How are we doing, Kate? I think we're doing a good job without our deck.
I think so. Without, we're plugging right along, and we're about 45 minutes in, and I think everyone's waiting for this fear part. That's what everyone's struggling with.
Okay, well, let's get to it. So one of my favorite quotes here is, by far the most difficult skill I learned was the ability to manage my own psychology. And this is by Ben Horowitz, who's also an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, also a very well-known investor. Most folks underestimate the importance of the role of psychology in business. Most folks, to be honest, underestimate the role of psychology in life, right? So the big question is, do you own your mind and emotions, or do they own you? And is the answer the same in times of stress? Like, I don't know, 2020, right? So, what we're talking about here is self-management and self-regulation. And that is actually the tent pole of emotional intelligence. And there's a lot of research that says EQ can be up to 2x as important as IQ at certain levels of business success. So I'm a big believer of EQ, and it's our ability to manage our thoughts and our emotions that, that all impacts your confidence, your optimism, your adaptability, your resilience, all of these keywords of successful entrepreneurs, right? So here's where the order to which we presented the F words comes in. So in order to manage your mind and emotions, you have to be practicing self-care, and you have to manage your time and attention. Because if you're not feeling good and you're exhausted, or you're running around and playing defense, of course you're not going to be on top of your mind and your emotions, right? So those two build into this third one, right? And this is actually a good slide that I'll explain, because a guy is literally sitting here, and it says self-talk, the most important conversation that you will ever have. And it's so true, right? The most important conversations you ever have are the ones you're having with yourself, right? Some people call these ants, automatic negative thoughts. Ariana Huffington calls it your negative roommate in the back of your head. It's your inner critic, right? Does anybody know what I'm talking about, right? Hit us up in the chat, right? Some people call it like the soundtrack that's in your head, or the movie playing in your head. So here's the deal, folks. We have 60,000 thoughts a day. 85% of those are repeat thoughts, okay? And 80% of those thoughts are negative. Okay, so the cliff note there is, for a group of creatives, we're not all that creative, because we're repeating the same thoughts, and then we are massive self-shit talkers. Okay, well, why is that? Because everything, just like in evolution and everyone before us, all of our information comes through our amygdala. Okay, and before us, it was used to protect us from lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. Now it's used to protect us from our identity and our ego, right? It's here to keep us safe, right? It's here to keep us playing small and to keep us not taking risks. Well, we're entrepreneurs. We can't play small. We play big. We have to take risks, okay? So we have to overcome this. We have to become managers of our thoughts and our emotions. So here's what happens. Negative thoughts tend to be self-fulfilling, right? If you think you're going to go in and not blow the investor meeting, you probably will. If you're going after that big gig to be a photographer at something and you don't think you're going to get it, then you're probably not going to get it, right? So we need to have tools for awareness of where we're at right now, right? And a lot of us are in funky places right now. So here's the deal. I call it the NPR. It's not National Public Radio. It's your negativity to positivity ratio. So just hear me out for a second, and I want you to start thinking, right? How am I talking to myself? Am I living in no? Am I living in negative? What I can't do? What I won't do? Am I focusing on closed doors? Am I thinking of, things out of control? Am I thinking and complaining, right? Or am I living in yes and positivity and what I can do and what I want to do and open doors? And I'm living in thankful and gratitude mindset. Okay, that's your NPR. So here's the exercise I give a lot of my clients. Take your phone at the end of each day, send yourself a note, either a positive or a negative sign. If you want to make it really fun, use emojis, right? Happy emoji, sad emoji, frustrated, and start to kind of track your NPR. It's very important to know the stories that you're playing. Okay. And the good news is, with research and science, our brains are a lot more, there's a lot more plasticity than we thought. So we can train our brains, right? We can train our brains to move from the negative, move from negative Nancy to positive Patty, right? We can do this, and I'm going to give you tools for how to do this. But so here's the thing with fear. We want to get back to fear. So there's two parts to success. There's your system of doing, which is your action, and then there's system of being, which is your thoughts and your emotions. Thoughts and emotions are really intertwined, right? Is anybody on here familiar with CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy? Right? From your thoughts and your emotions, your behaviors and actions flow, right? So when we're talking about fear, doubt, stress, worry, anxiety, a lot of entrepreneurs will say, oh, but I like a little stress and pressure. Well, it can be healthy, right? But entrepreneurs and creatives, you may use it to push yourself a little, but there's a fine line between when it's a tailwind and when it's a headwind, right? You have to be cognizant of when all of a sudden it starts to strangle your confidence or keep you up at night or impact your health or your productivity. If you have team members, when is it becoming visible to your team, right? So all these thoughts and all of these emotions start to become visible in your behaviors and your actions outward. And if you're a leader, you can understand why it's even more important to have this stuff in check. So I have a amazing tool for you. It's on page 9 of the workbook. The workbook you can find pinned. This is important stuff. It's called the Racket and the Reframe. Okay. So it's about mind shifting. You guys want to be Jedi mind shifters. You want to be able to move from the negative fear-based thoughts to the positive, courageous thoughts, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to, on this sheet, after we get off the phone or over the next 2 weeks, maybe again, tracking the phone all the time you have these thoughts, you're going to write down the racket you're telling yourself, right? This could be any of the following. I'll give you 3 examples that I come across a lot from the founders I work with. I'm an imposter. I don't know what I am doing. And so will figure out. I'm a solopreneur, so I'll never beat that established firm to win the business. I'm a creative. I'm not good with numbers, so I'll never be able to build a big business, right? We tell ourselves all these things that are not setting us up for success and alignment. Everybody know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone has this. So if you don't, maybe we need to do a free session on self-awareness. But my suggestion is also, even those of us that are aware, like literally, if you take notes with your phone for 2 weeks, you will literally send me an email, Robyn at FounderForward. Holy shit, I say the craziest stuff to myself. We are just not kind to ourselves. We would never say this stuff to our best friend, but we say it to ourselves. We're not serving ourselves, right? We're not serving ourselves in the regular world trying to build a business. We're not serving ourselves in the craziness of 2020, right? So we need to get our loops back. So what do? You reframe. Once you have a list over 2 weeks of what you're telling yourself, you're going to go on this sheet in the workbook and you're going to go, what is the positive, courageous thought that I have? I like expletives. They're powerful. Mine mostly have them. I will save everybody in public from them, or maybe I'll give you a little one. But for instance, bullshit. I've gotten this far and I will continue to learn and hustle my way to the next level of success. I have an amazingly creative proposal and I'm confident that they will see we are the best partner for them. I have a growth mindset and I'm committed to learning and growing to build my dream business, right? So think about the racket and think about the reframe. If the racket has some nugget of truth, right? The fear basis is like, okay, I'm not going to be good at presenting this proposal, then maybe it means you need to practice, right? So there's 2 things about confidence. It's your self-talk and then it's your proficiency or your practice. So use this as a tool to reframe your self-talk, but don't kid yourself. If you need to practice something or go learn something, then use this as a tool to step into action, right? Make sense? That's the racket and the reframe, okay? What we're doing is we're building self-awareness and we're also building a muscle to manage and choose a different thought or story. You are all creatives Be the creator of your thoughts and your stories. You are at choice. Okay, gosh, I timed this well. Stick with me because we have 5 minutes and I'm going to run through 9 strategies for managing your fears. This is the big stuff, folks, okay? The most successful creatives and entrepreneurs out there are able to generate positive thoughts and emotions, right? That leads to positive energy and positive behavior and positive action, right? It's attracting what you're putting out. So the first one is awesome. We've already talked about it. The first step is practice self-care and managing your time, attention, and energy. The second is practicing commanding your mind. I really wish this was a quote I came up with because it's very me. Your mind is like a puppy. If you don't train it, it will shit everywhere. Anybody have a puppy? Is that the truest thing you've ever heard? You have to train your mind. Commanding your mind goes back to mindfulness and meditation. What you're trying to do is create a space between stimulus and response. You're creating a space where you are in power to choose and to create your response, not to react, to respond, to choose your response, your action, your decisions, your behaviors, to choose to come from a place of empowerment. There's a lot about 2020 that may seem disempowering, so we need to step up and be our own best friend. And we need to be our own inner champion. We need to silence the inner critic, but we need to empower ourselves, right? Step 3, commit to journaling. Okay, lots of people tell me they've tried to journal and they don't know what to journal about. And I'm just going to make this really simple. What am I telling myself about my job, this project, the company, the pandemic, my finances, my family? Those are like the core buckets. What are you telling yourself? Write this all out, right? More important, what am I feeling about these? Where am I feeling it in my body, right? You have to name it to tame it. You got to feel it to heal it. We need to get in there and understand what this stuff is. So journal, right? The next one is, basically the exercise we just completed. So it's a bit of reframing, but it's just positive self-talk. I got this. I can do this. I do mantras in the morning, right? Write down mantras in the morning. It sets your intention for the day. Then we have growth mindset, right? I don't know if you've read the book by Carol Dweck. It may be a great book to read, but failure is learning and growth. And let me tell you something, as an entrepreneur, you're going to fail. There are going to be times you're going to fail, and you have to pick yourself up and see it as a learning experience and move on, right? Growth mindset is key. It's not just key to entrepreneurship, it's key to life, and it's key to living in a VUCA world, right? What can we learn from this, and how do we adapt and move forward? The next one, oh my goodness, I love Brene Brown. We have some Brene Brown. She says, research shows the greatest barrier to daring leadership isn't fear, it's our armor. It's what we're doing to protect ourselves, right? That can be protectionism, defensiveness, perfectionism. It can be numbing, back to the eating and drinking and not really taking care of ourselves right now because we're hiding our emotions, right? And so taking the armor off, stepping into courage and bravery. If you want to be in entrepreneurship, you're going to need to take the armor off and step into the courage and the bravery, right? The next one, I love this. Lean into your why or your win. So sometimes as an entrepreneur, or anybody in this world, you get overwhelmed, right? And you don't know what to do next, and you're overwhelmed here. So how do you get motivated? Or when you're feeling the fear, think about your why. Think about the big vision for the company you're starting, your big vision for the project, your big vision for the photography exhibit, right? And really then it moves you from fear to inspiration and gets you excited and fired up. Now, sometimes the big picture is what freaks us out. Oh my God, I've got this big company I've started, or I've told everybody about my photography exhibit. So what do? Then you bring it back to the win, which is what's important now. What's the next best step? What's the thing I can do in the moment, right? So one is the why, one is the win. Where we're at, ask for help, okay? I'm going to say this, I said this before. Connect with others. The single best predictor of human resilience is support from other people. And that's where I want to say something really important. There's recent studies that 1/3 of Americans are showing symptoms of anxiety and depression. So ask for help. Like if you are feeling intense and prolonged feelings of anxiety and depression, seek professional help. There's no shame in it. I don't want to make it sound like you can go through these 9 things and then always be in control of your mind. And most therapists and psychologists will tell you that these 9 things are also important to helping. But sometimes that you need medication or somebody professional to talk to, and there is no shame, grace and compassion. Okay. We are on the last one with 1 minute to go, the bonus one. Who has a gratitude habit? And by a gratitude habit, I don't mean once a week. I mean every day, every single day, you guys. There are 11,000 scientific studies that show developing a gratitude habit makes you feel more positive, more optimistic, less stressed, sleep better. Remember the one we talked about, sleep? Gratitude habit. Or be more creative and more productive. Anybody on here know anybody in the world that doesn't want to be more positive, optimistic, less stressed, sleep better, more creative, and more productive? I don't. And if it takes a 5-minute exercise where you write down 3 things you're thankful or grateful for, man, is that the biggest ROI I've ever heard of. So, but my parting thoughts are most successful people grow by awareness, acceptance, action, and accountability, right? So when you're thinking about mastering your fatigue, your focus, and your fear, I want you to be honest with where you're at in terms of managing these. First of all, awareness and honesty. Don't beat yourself up. You're a work in progress. Acceptance, right? Grace and space. I am where I am. It's a hard road right now, but I'm going to put these habits in place. Put in the work. Take the first step of living a healthy, more sustainable life and build a healthy, more sustainable business, right? Number 4, success is a habit, which happens to be my screensaver. So we're going to do this really quick, Kate. We're right at an hour. People, chat in the chat. I gave you all kinds of tools across fatigue, focus, and fear. What are some things that you're going to take away and try to implement? 3 goals for the year. You're going to time block your calendar. You're going to do your peak performance recipe. You're going to meditate. You're going to practice gratitude. What are we doing here?
All right, we got lots of people chiming in here, lots of gratitude habits, a lot of journaling. Let's see here, who else is popping in with some, there we go. All right, another gratitude habit. A lot of people seem like the gratitude habit will help also reframe or at least bring awareness to how much we're talking negatively to ourselves. That's what someone said. Grady says it's recipe time. He's excited to get into the workbook and start creating a peak performance recipe for himself. It looks like, yeah, everyone is just clapping and saying thank you. Looks like everybody has a lot of work to do in this workbook, but it looks like everyone is really excited, and you gave us a lot of tools to reframe the way we're thinking, manage our emotions. I do have a couple of questions that are coming in that people wanted to for you to re-explain real quick. One of which is VUCA. Can you go back into VUCA a little bit? Oh, yeah. I'll just throw out a couple more call outs here. Kathy says she wants to start meditating, her gratitude journal, her goals, her journaling, excuse me. Dina says she's going to start her gratitude habit and she wants to do her daily awareness and NPR. She says, thank you so much. Now, back to you. Can you re-explain a little bit VUCA and how to use that as a tool to frame how you're looking at growing yourself?
Yes. So VUCA is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. It's actually an MBA term. And we live in a VUCA world, right? I mean, the new normal is change. So we're not going backward, which is why it's so important to figure out your new tools, your new routines, your new habits, or to tap back into those, because some of us got off track this year, very understandably. But thinking about a world in which VUCA becomes more the norm is sort of the framework for all of this, which is how do you adapt and adopt and become somebody who excels in that world, which is where a lot of these tools are aimed to be helpful.
Laura has a comment that is coming from that, which is, you know, since we live in this VUCA world, how, and she brought up that she struggles with sleep. She wants to get more sleep. 6 hours is where she's at right now. She would like to prioritize sleep, but she's struggling with, you know, getting through the night because there's so much going on. Do you have any suggestions on, how to mentally prepare yourself for continuing this VUCA world and giving yourself the time to take the space that you need to, make sure you are getting a good night's sleep and eating well and doing all those things. Every day is different in the startup world, but now every day is different for everybody everywhere. And kind of managing that roller coaster. We talked about that a little early on. If you want to speak to that again, I think that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea here is, and particularly with some of the exercises in the workbook, like the peak performance recipe, get up and look at it every day, right? If you put the time box in and you do the big 3 rocks, you're really trying to instill some clarity and certainty in a world there's not a lot of clarity and certainty, right? So we don't have a lot of control in the macro, but we have the control in the micro. I want to say something specific to sleep. There are a lot of new technologies coming out to help with this. I have a lot of friends that have the Aura ring, which has been very helpful with sleep. But we were talking about a gratitude practice. So a gratitude practice helps one sleep. And I want you to think about this. Here's what most entrepreneurs I start to work with. Right about bedtime, their head hits the pillow and then all of a sudden they're ruminating, like on all the things they would have done differently that day or all the things that they have to do because they have a big vision and they have limited cash and limited team and yada. So that's usually when we start to spin out. The reason why it's really great to actually have your gratitude practice at night is because you think about those things you're thankful and grateful for, and that can have an impact on actually quelling the ruminating of all of the stress and the worry. So you can do a gratitude practice whenever, and some people love to do it at breakfast or lunch, but I actually think that it is most impactful in the evening. And there's some data and science around, again, I shared with you, to help sleep better. 11,000 studies will tell you that a gratitude practice will help you sleep better.
And I'll say from my personal experience, I got into the loop of the news feed in the morning. I tried to break up when I was looking at my news feed. I will only do it in the morning and at night once a day or twice a day because the news is always terrible. One thing that I realized was, like you were saying, when I open my news feed and I'm reading all the headlines, that's immediately, whether it's email, whether it's looking at your Asana and seeing all the things you have to do, looking at those things first thing was terrible for me. I've kind of reframed the time I look and moved my news to my lunchtime and replaced my late night news check-in with a gratitude habit at night, because looking at the news before you go to bed is just getting you all worked up again. And that has been something I took from you and has been amazing for me.
Yeah, again, a lot of this stuff sounds simple. It's just not easy. So the best tip I have is you gotta write it out and like make a plan around it, so that you can follow it. If you just start to try to think about the things you're gonna do in your head, it becomes murky and harder to stick to. Most importantly, it would be awesome if you shared the workbook with a friend and got an accountability partner. That's the way you could do a lot of this stuff, right? Is share which things you're going to do and send each other a text on Mondays and say, go and be a cheerleader, and send each other a text on Friday and report how you did. That can be really helpful to really starting to develop habits around these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everyone is saying thank you, Robyn. I'll read you a couple more comments before we close out the session. Laura jumped back in and said she's so glad she clicked on this live session. She's got the workbook and she is excited to get rid of her negative talk and organize her day. She has an idea of what she's going to do and how everything changes, and she's excited to dig deeper. And she said this has been really helpful for her. So more claps, and someone from Egypt saying thank you so much. These are all tools that are really, really helpful. Again, we have people from Florida, Egypt, Mexico, all over the world saying thank you, Robyn. We really appreciate you coming on and giving us a little taste of what you do. Grady again says thank you. He's getting ready to go do his peak performance recipe. And before we hop off, I want to give you a chance to give us a little insight on what you have going on the rest of the year. I know that this little mini workshop is a part of your Best Self Leadership workshop that's much more intensive. So if you have time, will you tell us a little bit more about the Best Self Leadership workshop and give us a little lowdown on what you're up to the rest of the year?
I will say thanks for everybody that joined, and I'm glad that you found some of this valuable. I'm really passionate about this work. My passion is helping entrepreneurs become their best selves and build their best companies of their dreams. Best Self Leadership is actually a 5-part sort of boot camp. And some of what we went through today, and we did go through a lot very fast, is in that, but there's a lot more. But it's back to this concept I mentioned at the beginning. It's hard to be a good leader of others. And again, that could be a good leader of your kids. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that you have a big team to lead or a leader in your community if we're not good leaders of self. And so I've developed a framework around that. And it's self-care, which is a bit of what we talked about, self-awareness, which is a lot of exercises that we did not do here. Self-management is the hardest one, probably. It takes the time, attention, and energy, but goes really deep into managing your emotions and your mindset. And then self-growth, which is being directive about where you're going. We quickly talked about goals, but in this we will do goal setting and I will work through the development templates. So that's something that we will probably do in the new year. You know, we usually do this to kick off the new year, and we've sort of done this, and I think we'll see if we can, you know, try to get a Best Self Leadership circle going in January, late January or February, so that people can use it coinciding to the early year kickoff. If you go to FounderForward.com, there's a couple of different tabs that will say Best Self Leadership, and then you can read about it more and sign up. Also, if you go to my website, you can, once a month, it's not spam in your email, I share on a topic that is relevant to all of this and more, a lot of entrepreneurial content too. And then you can follow my socials, FounderForward and at RM Ward on Twitter.
I'm dropping the link to the Best Self Leadership into the comments right now for everyone. For anyone who wants to check it out, I will leave it there for you. And Robyn, I just want to tell you a few more people saying thank you so much, because we have an amazingly worldwide audience. Kathy from Mozambique says thank you. Laura from Tennessee. We have another Toronto. We have a Spain saying thank you. So it's all over the world. It's really cool to see all of these people tuning in and watching, and all of this content really resonating with everybody, because we're all going through this crazy year, and these are amazing tools to help us navigate the constant roller coaster of 2020.
Yes, F 2020.
Yes, exactly. Thank you again for
cursing.
Thank you again so much for letting us come to your home in LA. Leave some comments for us if you want to see Robyn back on Creative Live. Maybe we should bring you back to do a full class on this. I think people would really love. So everybody, leave us some thumbs up and some comments if you want to see Robyn back on the platform. And again, thank you so much for joining us today, Robyn, and letting us come into your home and sharing these amazing tools.
Thank you.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Chase Jarvis, founder and CEO of Creative Live. You all know that we have more than 2,000 classes and more than 10,000 hours of learning, inspirational, and motivational content on the platform. I'm super excited to announce a new experience on Creative Live. It's called Fast Class. You've told us that you're busy and sometimes it's hard to dive into a full class from start to finish. So essentially, we're now giving you a shortened highlight version of our top Creative Live classes. You can always dive into the full class with 5, 10, or 15 hours of great content. But now, if you're just looking to focus on a few of the highlights or want to be able to skip quickly to something that really interests you, you can now get a shortened fast class version of that class. We're also thinking this might be able to help you explore a new craft and save time while doing it. This is a great tool to curate your learning experience to help create the life that you seek. So you're probably thinking, great, how do I access this new experience on Creative Live? That's easy. All you have to do is be a subscriber to the Creator Pass, and then all this is yours. If you're feeling isolated and looking for creative connection, try tuning into creativelive.com/TV. That's where we've got a 24/7 live stream from the kitchen counters.
I can do that backlit shot that I really like to do.
From the studios and living rooms of many of the world's top creators, where we're doing musical performances, Q&As, cooking shows, virtual book tour events, drawing, spoken word poetry, and more.
Life passed me by waiting for an invitation when the world is greater than my nation or my occupation. Be someone you've never been. You feel all that adrenaline, it's medicine.
It actually helps me feel like my days are more purposeful.
I hope that out of this deep pain will come some collective growth.
Dive into Creative Live TV today.